Let's go to the ECHO briefing. That was set for staff briefing. That was set for 10:30.
Yeah. Briefing. 49.
Item number 49.
Good morning, Mayor and Council and guests. My name is Sarah Hensley. I'm the Interim Assistant City Manager, and I have with me today Carrie O'Connor, who is the Chief Innovation Officer. As they load the PowerPoint, I wanted to share with you that this has been a journey, and this is not the end. This is the beginning. We have worked with experts across the city, both internally and externally, and some of our guests here today are here with us from outside the city, but you are also going to hear today from staff members who I consider to be experts inside the city, who have spent an enormous amount of time helping us to create a plan on how to move forward. Those names that you see up here are representative of departments such as EMS, the police, watershed protection, Health Department, Parks and Recreation, Libraries, Innovation Office, the Downtown Community Court, Office of Performance Management, City Auditor's Office, and then, of course, our wonderful partners and friends in the community. And certainly it's not inclusive, but particularly ECHO. Ann Howard is here today, Integral Care, our friends at Salvation Army, Front Steps, LifeWorks, Downtown Austin Alliance, I believe Bill Bryce is here, and the many members of our faith community. To address the issues related to homelessness, it is a very complex problem. Having had the opportunity since November of last year to get out and about and look and visit with people and talk to interested individuals, it's going to require a system focus, meaning all of us coming to the table and speaking with one voice. This is not a new issue across the country. Cities are facing the issues related to homelessness and working hard to try to solve the issues. And the difficult process is how to prioritize the services and achieve multiple outcomes. But together with ECHO and our partners, the city will work to create this unified plan, and we have a very good beginning. The one today that you will be endorsing with ECHO, and then, of course, hopefully that you'll be able to accept our efforts and what we're recommending. There are three key areas that we're talking about, which is aligning with key partners, raising awareness, and enhancing the efforts. The outcome is really we're wanting to reach is more efficient use of our resources and increased effectiveness in the community. Again, this takes a systematic approach, and we believe that we have the means to do it. We can take care of this issue. It will not happen overnight. We are aligned with ECHO. The question we know will come up, and the answer is we're aligned. We wanted to show you how well we're aligned when you look at the endorsement that you're going to make with the ECHO plan and the recommendations that we have coming forward. But there's further refinement to be made, and that is coming together to create one unified strategy with some specific goals and objectives, and we ask that we be allowed to continue to work with the Office of Performance Management to create those measures so that we have these things we can tick off together. The question may be raised about, well, what happened to all the resolutions? There were 11 of those resolutions, and we have completed most of those except for two. The one which is about the pay for success, which we are moving forward, and I'm proud to say that it is going to be moving forward soon, and it's in the law department's hands working with the other entities. The other one is in regards to housing, and we're also working on that to hopefully be able to fund by the end of 2018. Two areas to note, the two that were regarding panhandling, we finished, and you have memos in your hands regarding that about 2 weeks ago, but highlighting those, the creative measure of creating a way to have people donate money through the possibility of a parking meter that are strategically placed in the city where people can donate, but also hiring individuals experiencing homelessness in areas such as parks, helping us to walk our pets, our animals at the Animal Services Center, and helping us remove graffiti across the city. There are some suggestions of how we would help to hire individuals experiencing homelessness and be able to put them back to work. Also, the city auditor's office conducted some audits. They've completed 2 phases. One will come before the Audit and Finance Committee soon. But there were questions raised about in November and December in regards to the ordinances and do they align, and then the coordination of the homelessness efforts. Today, our efforts will hopefully help you and others see that by the recommendations we're making will help to reduce the issues related to sit-lie, camping, and panhandling. And we believe there are 4 things that we can do as a city that will reduce those issues. Interrupt the crime, give people chances and places to be, reduce the barriers to the services, and provide housing. And you're going to hear more about that. In addition, you'll hear more about how we believe the efforts need to be coordinated across the city. I'm now going to turn this over to Carrie to talk about a little bit about the reality from the ground up.
The Innovation Office I-Team, funded by Bloomberg Philanthropies, has conducted interviews of about 120 people experiencing homelessness. We have a short 3-minute video to show you today of some of these folks in their own words.
I mean, I'm thinking of one particular client. She's living with schizophrenia, and it's untreated. So she gets a check from Social Security, and she's drug-free. She's so sick. Where she is, how much money she gets when the money comes, then get her PIN number. Her $735 will go in less than 24 hours.
If my medicines that I was on, I was taking for ADHD, bipolar, schizophrenia, and my depression, and anxiety, and see, that's the walk. And 1 out of 3 of those pills worked for almost all of them. Yeah, Adderall. And Adderall is just pharmaceutical speed. And it was because when I was 18 years old and I didn't have my Medicaid anymore, because Medicaid cuts off at age 19. So I had to pretty much be led to street medications.
So after these 2 jobs, me and Anarchy are going to come together and get a 2-bedroom apartment. Because he has 2 jobs, he also works here sometimes as well. So that's 5 jobs altogether. Okay, and that's just amazing. I never thought in my life I would have more than 2 jobs. Another roadblock is things don't go as planned. As to where either he loses this job or I lose 1 job, or it's just, shit just goes downhill. And that tends to happen a lot. But if we keep our heads up and everything, it should go as planned.
Have you done like a coordinated assessment?
Yes. I've done one. I was going to talk to them about letting Anarchy and I kind of do what we were planning on doing. But if we're probably going to get there before they are ready. Yeah, before they find me a place to stay. Then we're probably going to get all that done before they even acknowledge my existence.
Why would you say that?
Because I want a 2-year waiting list.
First thing you realize when you're homeless is that there's food everywhere in this country. You can get a coat, some long johns, some socks. You can get that. Those things are wide open for people here. That can sustain you. What really sustains you is something that you can do. Big deal. Okay? That even if it's just a grandiose, stratified idea, okay, like art, ambiguous as it can be, what's the value in that?
Yeah.
You can start to feel like somebody.
What's the value in that? It makes you feel like you're somebody. Those 120 interviews we broke down into 4,100 data points. And in their own words, this is what people who are experiencing homelessness need. They need social inclusion. They need to keep taking their medication. They need to heal. They need to get sober. They need access to health care. They need to make ends meet. They need economic stability. They need not to be exploited. They need to not be illegal. They need to avoid being raped, molested, or assaulted. They need safety. They need a place to store their inhaler, a place to wash their clothes and to shower. And they need solitude. They need a good environment and living situation. They need to deal with loneliness. They need to fill a void in their life. They need to get their children back. They need to be the best artist. They need to get their GED. They need a purpose. I need to put something together with my hands. They need to take care of their aging mother. They need to get a bus pass. They need to get directions. They need to get sneakers. They need to be pushed to do what they need to do. They need mobility. And most of all, they need to stay optimistic and stay motivated. All of these needs, when you map them out, these are social determinants of health. And it's across these social determinants that we need to be looking to place our investments as we work to end homelessness.
Good morning again, Mayor, Council. In addition to all those things, as Carrie laid out, that from their own mouths they need a place to be. Prior to the Falk Library closing last fall, we had frequent 911 calls to Falk almost daily, either by the business owners, the property owners nearby for people camping and human waste, erratic behavior and disturbances at the bus stops. And every day our officers would respond to that and take whatever action we could, to alleviate, with the involvement of hosts and just patrol officers, taking care of the moment. Once Falk closed, we saw a large increase of people camping over in Councilmember Renteria's district at the Terrazas Library, which led to he and I spending a few hours in a community meeting there back in January. Each time we receive these calls, we start this revolving door that we're stuck in. The citizens complain either directly to us or through each of your offices, which leads to us being required to take police action. And we clean the camps up, and we ask people to move along, but when they ask, where do we go, we don't really have a good answer for that. About the only place we can tell them to go is the Arch. And it's well chronicled and documented that the services there are insufficient based on the number of people who need it. And so they create a new camp somewhere else, which creates new complaints, which creates new police action. And we get stuck in this never-ending revolving door cycle, while people who are very challenged and have very strong needs are left in unstable environments, and which lead to an unstable life, which leads to more police action, and we just continue down that path until there are enough places to be while that 2-year cycle runs its course for housing.
The innovation team, when they parsed through the interviews, they found a pattern of a deteriorating path where people are deteriorating in a very complex system. There's a relapsing path, that revolving door, but yet there's a resilient path where, despite these barriers, people, like our artist in the video, are resilient and they're finding their way. And we're going to hear from the Downtown Austin Community Court and EMS about 2 examples of those paths.
Good morning, Peter Valdez, Community Court. The population that the Community Court serves is typically revolving between the deteriorating path and the relapsing path. One client in particular that I'd like to present currently has 173 cases with our court, 36-year-old male. His first contact with the Community Court was in 2012. Since then, he has been housed. He was actually housed this year. Unfortunately, because of his severe mental health issues, he is living on the street again. He still has a home, but refuses to stay in that home because of, again, his severe mental health issues. This individual, what he needs is long-term hospitalization, but in Texas, that is not available. So because of that, he's bouncing back and forth between those two paths, and obviously needs much more support than we can provide. I should say that he is actively being supported by our case management, but he's also being supported by Integral Care's case management. So even with all of that support, he's still not maintaining his stability.
Amber Price, community health paramedic. I'm going to tell you about a gentleman who is resilient. We like those stories that pushes us forward and keeps us moving. As a community health paramedic, I was on duty going down South Congress, and I saw a gentleman laying on the road, halfway on the sidewalk, halfway on the grass. Stopped and engaged with him. He was very open. We started talking about goals and what I felt like he deserved as a person. He agreed. We got together that day. He got in the Tahoe, and we went around, connected him to resources that he needed. We got him insurance, went to a clinic, saw a doctor. For the next 3 days, we spent all 3 days together. I learned a lot about him. I learned that he had 2 college degrees. I learned that he was on his 4th year of medical school when depression and self-medication got him to that point. Over the next, I'd say, 2 or 3 weeks, we worked together with Downtown Community Court and Integral Care and Community First Village. He went into rehab, never took another drink, and he has been living out at Community First Village for 17 months sober. He is truly resilient.
Those are our stories, and now we'll show you a few of the numbers that we've collected. And you can see that there's a wide variance when we're trying to count people who are experiencing homelessness, depending on the data system that you are looking at, depending on how homelessness is defined, and depending on how that information is entered into a database. HUD has specifically scripted definitions for homelessness. The Department of Education includes in their count people are housing unstable, so you can see the number of folks identified by AISD. The point-in-time count is 1 day, as you have heard and learned, but you can also see through our APD system and through our partners at Central Health that our numbers can vary widely up to 9,000 or 10,000. And this is one of the things that I believe we need to get a handle on is a survey of metrics. I remember in Councilmember Kazar's district, we had a conversation with the community about homelessness, and there was a woman veteran there who says, women veterans are the highest rising number of people experiencing homelessness, but you will never find us. We are living in our cars, and the last things that we give up are our cell phones and our gym memberships, because we can keep applying for jobs and we have a place to take a shower. So I don't know where in our data set you would find people like that, but we know that we have to keep looking for the people that we can't count.
This slide is pretty self-explanatory, but it basically tells us how many beds we are currently using with our partners, 902. But it also tells us that we have to double that. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, and we need almost 900 more, a total of 836 beds. And so it kind of paints the picture, again, of we're doing some things, and we have a lot of great partners doing a lot of good things, but we need more beds to house and to put people in so they can get off the street. The question has been raised about, well, how much are we spending in the city regarding services related to homelessness? This is, again, I use the word related because this is not necessarily completely all, but this is what we have. Over $30 million across city departments and other efforts through grants and general fund system. And then you break it down a little bit below it talks about how much directly is going to the Austin Public Health Department. It tells you how much we're currently spending in direct services. But then if we look at the next slide, there are so many other things that we have that are being impacted in the city that are indirectly impacted. And the money is basically being spent through those different departments' current levels of funding. $500,000 for public works for the downtown toilets, and obviously our partners at DAA help us tremendously. Sidewalk cleaning and alley repairs. Encampments, a huge cost for encampments to clean those up, and not necessarily because we want to run people off, but because of the debris and the needles and other things that are now getting into our waterways. And we have a responsibility to keep those clean. There's risk of wildfires and flooding, and individuals who are experiencing homelessness who are living along the creek areas, and when it does rain, and we have a huge amount of rain, are getting washed out, and once again they go back through that cycle. They need services, they need supplies, they need equipment. And that's the vicious cycle. Displacement, it creates displacement all over the city. But imagine if we could say we did all the things that we're going to recommend and we're reducing those indirect costs. We may be able to actually save money in the city. You see a picture here just to give you an example of a cleanup that took place along Williamson Creek Greenbelt. It took 70 different staff members on 30 days to clean this up. And you see those large trash containers to the tune of $53,360. And this was truly a holistic approach to cleaning it. So it gives you an idea. Now we'll have the libraries. They want to share some exciting information with you, which I think is a direction we need to go, which is looking at how we use existing facilities in our city inventory to help address these issues.
Emmy Johnson Library. What we have done is partnered with city departments and other organizations such as our Integral Care, and we have brought the services to where our customers are who are in need of these services. And we call this wraparound services. And we had selected initially Terrasas Neighborhood Library. It has a high concentration of persons in need. We find that bringing the social work aspect to it, linking and connecting individuals with these services where they are in a place where it's comfortable, we're a neutral, safe place, has been successful. We'd like to replicate these services and expand. We are monitoring how it's progressing. So, thank you.
Good morning. Tabor White with the Austin Police Department. So one of the tools that we're looking at is COPAC stats, and COPAC stats stands for Critical Observations, Police, and Community. And what this does is it allows our officers to assign a root cause or root causes to any call for service that they go to. Now, what this is able to do is it's able to identify vulnerable populations like homeless or people experiencing mental illness. It's able to identify certain places like vacant properties and certain things like places that are experiencing physical disorder. So these can be the things that actually cause a call for service to be created. Now, this is important because each call for service costs resources, and it can also be an indication of a potentially bigger problem. Additionally, the identification of these problems can lead to a better response. Now, I can respond to an emergency call for service, and we do a pretty good job handling those emergency responses, but I've got nothing here on my belt that can fix homelessness. I've got nothing that can fix mental health or addiction. So one of the ways that we've used this before is with the Restore Rumberg project. We were able to identify that 44% of violent crimes in one of our hotspots involved a homeless person as either a suspect or as a victim. And whenever we were able to look at those numbers, we were able to pull together a response that involved both ECHO, Goodwill, and neighborhood partners to address that specific response. Now, a year later, we were able to come back, and in that very same hotspot, our violent crime had been cut in half, and we had 0 violent crimes that involved a homeless person. Now, with COPAC stats, not only can we start to pinpoint where these specific issues are, but we can also use it to identify what resources are being used and start to be able to put a dollar amount on what some of these problems are costing us in city services.
Josh Ruda, Neighborhood Housing. So what we have here is a City of Austin comprehensive homelessness map. And before I talk about that map, I kind of want to talk about what this map does and what it doesn't do. It shows where city staff interact with people experiencing homelessness. It does not talk about maybe increasing rents or lack of services in an area. So understanding that and how we use this map primarily as a tool to provide resources and give people housing as opposed to solely enforcement. So what you can see up here is a map, and you see all the different departments that are adding to this map. We have police data, we have EMS data, Parks and Rec. If someone is going through a park, if a park ranger sees a camp, it's easy to then mark that site and have a date on that. So you see this comprehensive map that shows us a lot of where camps are, where people are living, and where we're spending money on homelessness. You see right away that a lot of these camps and a lot of places where people are living are near bus lines. You see a lot of places that are South Austin near parks. But it really works because we have a lot of departments adding data. We have the faith community and nonprofits also using this and adding data. And all of it comes together so that departments can easily talk to each other without having to talk. This is also real time and interactive. So we didn't want a map that is just static and shows a point in time. We wanted a map that is going to constantly be added to. So if there is someone on the host team that needs to go into an area, they can easily see what's happening in that area. And it's interactive in that it's a story map on RTS Online. So you can zoom into it, you can pick time periods, you can filter by certain crimes or EMS calls. But it's a tool that is going to be added to consistently and is highly interactive. It is also has some sensitive data, and we're very cognizant of the fact that sharing openly this data. So we're working towards having a map like that, which is point data, that is going to be for city staff and for nonprofits to use, and having a public-facing version that is more heat maps or choropleth maps that shows things at a lower resolution. Now, to access this map right now, council would need access to RTS Online. I would encourage anyone interested in using this map to look at their own district and what's happening. It will constantly be added to. I'd be happy to help anyone walk through this map if anyone has any questions. But it's a good tool to really understand what's happening and how can we best and most effectively use our resources.
Good morning, Andy Hoffmeister with EMS. EMS participates and heads up the host team. The host team is a project that started back just a little over 2 years ago by APD and has now grown to be a place where programmatically it lives within EMS, but it's still a collaborative effort between the police department, EMS, Integral Care, Downtown Austin Community Court, with extensive support from the Downtown Austin Alliance. The host team is a multidisciplinary team. It is truly, there are individuals that are on the ground that actually get out, actually interact and engage the individuals that are out on the streets. These are some of the numbers that reflect their efforts over the last year. 784 unique individuals were encountered and served by the host team. There were 921 interventions. Those interventions include getting someone into medical care, providing medical care on site, performing a coordinated assessment, referring them to mental health services, taking care of an ID issue, you name it. There's a whole lot of those. And this was done through about nearly 1,400 contacts. There were 69 individuals that were diverted away from hospital emergency rooms during that time, 147 connections to mental health services, and 55 connections to substance use. And then also we did divert 30 individuals from psychiatric emergency care. The host team, like I said, is a team that is out on the streets. They are individuals that proactively engage those individuals that are experiencing homelessness, and with the intent of not necessarily housing the person themselves, but getting them linked up with services that can carry that ball moving forward. So the function of the host team is to identify the individual, engage the individual, get them in touch with the intensive case management, the individual services that can actually take them and work on getting them into housing. So that's the function of host. Another effort that has come up, and this is big thanks to Amber Price, one of our community paramedics that started working on this along with other host team members, was the concept of a pop-up resource clinic, or a PERC. There was obviously a need that to take the services or take this effort to where the individuals are, rather than requiring them to come into brick and mortar at a certain time, a certain place to talk with a certain person. There's too many barriers there. So we actually, she actually, along with the other host team members, actually worked on taking the service to them. And started off very, very small, but the idea is that we take key stakeholders that have access and provide service or provide essential services like healthcare, housing, mental health services, stuff like that. We actually take representatives and individuals out to these locations. One was just held at Terrazas Library a few months ago. Another one was held at Park Zaragoza just last week. And it's actually very well received by the community that's experiencing homelessness. Word spreads very quickly. There they can actually get out. They can actually meet with someone that can get them an ID taken care of. They can get them enrolled in MAP. They can actually see a doctor. They can get assessed for mental health services. They can get a coordinated assessment. It's all done right there. They can get it all done in one shot. So that's the benefit of the PERC clinic. We can show the video.
And we have just a less than minute and a half video.
And the Community Care Collaborative are sponsoring a pop-up resource clinic for persons experiencing homelessness. People who come receive services here today can set up appointments at medical clinics, can set up mental health and behavioral health appointments with Integral Care. They can check in with the VA to see if they are entitled to services from the VA. We have HIV testing on site. We have some medical appointments and some screenings on site. We have resource cars so that people can get in and out of the ARCH, the Resource Center for the Homeless. And we have all sorts of other services that people can access.
But you just see their shoulders raise a little bit, and they feel like they've accomplished something. Some of the things that were said at the last pop-up is, I haven't accomplished this much, and I've been homeless for 3 years as I've done in the last 2 hours. And it was just removing all those barriers and making that face-to-face connection easy. That is the solution. We're not going to be able to house them today. We're not going to be able to put them in a shelter, but we can definitely make their quality of life better. And we can convert the crisis interventions into non-crisis. That helps with funding, and that can be spread to other areas to possibly make more housing available.
It helps a lot. For one, having the MAP card will be just another security that I have. If anything goes wrong, everything else I pretty much got figured out. I just got a job. I'm about to get into the Salvation Army is going to help me, and now it's just like one more thing off the checklist,
Thank you.
Which brings us to housing. Rosie Trulove, I'm the Director of Neighborhood Housing and Community Development. We need more housing options. As you know, through our strategic housing blueprint, we set some goals. One, to produce 100 permanent supportive housing units each year, with 50 of those being housing first. And another, to create 20,000 new housing units affordable to 30% MFI below by 2027. Do you see the donut chart on the side of the slide? That's just to remind folks of the incredible need we have and where we plan to, what our goals are for housing at higher MFI levels. We can do this through permanent supportive housing. It's a tremendous expense. If you look at the property there, the image for Housing First Oak Springs, that was a property that contains 50 Housing First units. That comes at an expense. We contributed $3.8 million from our 2013 GEO bonds, which was a little less than $80,000 per unit. The total funding for that particular development is approximately $20 million, which looks at about $400,000 per unit. We've seen other city or Austin Housing Finance Corporation contributions towards permanent supportive housing units go up to even $100,000 to $115,000 per unit. So the price and the cost and the expense to the city of Austin can vary. We have other options available to us, such as rapid rehousing, the Community First Village model, and things like our ECHO Landlord Outreach Program, which you can see the image on the right represents, where we can get throughout the city geographically dispersed housing units by creating a voucher system to help bridge the gap in what the rental rates are.
So this slide is pretty self-explanatory, and that is, if we just provide services and not housing, it won't balance out. That's why we need a citywide system of care, so that we create this successful path for everyone. And, you know, Ann would tell you, and we've discussed this, that you can have the services, you can have the housing, but you got to have them both. And you got to strike the right balance, and that's what we want to do here. Also, the bottom line is, so what do we need? Well, we came up with 5 recommendations. One is to form a community brain trust, a meeting of the minds, to take individuals from some of our largest investors in dollars related to homelessness. Right now, homelessness first, but this brain trust could serve us in such many more capacities. For instance, we start with homelessness. We look at this brain trust to look at how we delve into issues related to workforce development, which actually ties into homelessness. We look at housing and how we tie that back into it. We look at affordable child care issues and those kinds of things, where we're looking at all the brain trust, the minds, to look at how we effectively address it. And finally, we look at accessibility to quality health care services from a brain trust form, so that we have all those individuals helping us solve the problems and forming the performance measures together. Recommendation number 1 is to actually provide a city staff lead. I have had the opportunity to meet with the city manager and talk about that. And while I have had the pleasure of working with this and I've enjoyed it immensely and will stay heavily involved as a liaison and a key executive over this area, there is a need to have someone who is looking at the city resources, collaborating and forming those city resources together to make sure that we are spending our dollars the most efficient and effective way, but also to help with the coordination of the brain trust and helping us do more of the gap analysis in all the different agencies and what is being funded, what's not being funded, what needs to be funded, and coming up with a recommendation that we can move forward. I also share with you there the actual item from the audit that was recently conducted, where the auditor also recommended a city staff lead to make sure that we were spending our dollars the most efficient and effective way.
As we're looking at this homelessness challenge, we've got to ensure that we have effective sheltering and a housing service plan. As we understand that clients are spending more time in shelters. And so as we are looking at that, the housing plan that will include navigation services will allow us to achieve the ultimate goal of placing clients in housing. We, Austin Public Health, there's a resolution that we are to look at the Austin Resource Center for the homeless, and we are looking at a redesign for the Arch. That has been a comprehensive community engagement process. We've held several stakeholder meetings. In addition to that, working collectively internally with City of Austin departments as well as external partners. We have completed work with the National Alliance to End Homelessness, and there will be a solicitation that we will put out. And the ultimate goal is that we will have a contract and a vendor in place April 1st of 2019. You will note that maybe some of you may have looked ahead to your council agenda. There is an item of May the 10th, and that item just basically adds some extension time to the current vendor of Front Steps at the Arch. And we did that because as we started this process and we started to unpack we notice that this is a little bit more complicated, and we want to be intentional and do this process very deliberate and be very inclusive. Ultimately, we know, as Rosie stated earlier, we need more housing options. In addition to that, we've got to look at this through an equity lens. We cannot lose sight that there are significant disparities in this system. The data shows the disparities. We've consulted with the Equity Office, but ultimately, we know that we have to ensure that the services are community-based and that they are culturally and linguistically appropriate services. One of the key things that we've received in feedback from the community is to always ensure that these services are compassionate, that we don't lose sight of being a compassionate service provider.
So we're getting to the end here, and the question is all the work in regards to our strategic plan, and how does this align to our strategic outcomes? And you, Council, had the opportunity to prioritize those outcomes recently, and interesting enough, in your top 6, but particularly in top 5 is homelessness and housing, accessibility to quality health care services, both physically and mentally, fair administration of justice, and then, of course, skills and capability of our community workforce, and then condition and quality of our facilities, which ties into looking at more facilities to house and help our people experiencing homelessness. So we align very well with, directly, indirectly, and operationally with those top areas. And the next steps that we're recommending is that we work with ECHO and others, but particularly ECHO, and develop and align our performance measures to those outcomes in the city strategic plan. But also, you will be seeing, as we move forward in the budget process, a multi-departmental, across departments, budget proposals that will be tied directly to what we're recommending here. And staff will be sitting down actually tomorrow from different departments looking at how do we move the needle that we've talked about today through a multi-departmental budget approach, and asking for those things that we need to do to make sure that we are addressing these issues.
And then finally, I was reminded when we were doing this research of an article that I read in 2013. It's written by John Meary, who works here in Austin at the LCRA, and it was Vibrancy Engineered, the City as a System. And what it said was, in Chicago, they took Chicago data and they said, hey, if we put it through a mathematical simulation, could we figure out which project we could fund to make the city of Chicago more sustainable? And they found out, much to their chagrin, that no project would do that. But then as they put in a strategic set of investments in multiple projects, just like you and I might have an investment portfolio, as they started tuning, they figured out through this mathematical simulation how to move the needle. And so it's the right combination of projects that lead to a dramatic, vibrant, growing and thriving city. And I think that this research and the efforts that all of our community partners and that the city are doing together demonstrate that we can build this kind of a dashboard. We can give you the measures that you need to direct the investments, and we can do the right thing by our residents who are suffering right now. There's a gentleman who has asked us to speak for a few minutes, and I'm compelled to hear his voice.
Hello, council members, mayor. I was one of those people who were downtown, and I was down there for a year, and through Caritas, through Foundation Communities, I got help. I've been housed now going on 4 years due to the process of the city. And I feel that, what y'all are doing is good, because it's more people that want help, but at the same time, they need more resources. They need to feel like they belong to something. They need to feel like somebody cares about them. Because without that, they won't be successful. I mean, because they go through so many things, just like, what was said earlier, drug addiction, losing family, not dealing with life, not feeling like they're part of something. But when all these things come together, you look at what you see now, a success to a certain extent. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not where I used to be either. And I'm very thankful for that. I made it a point to come to this meeting to let y'all know what is actually being done. It is helping people, but at the same time, people don't have the resources as far as to get a bus pass, to come and talk to people, to feel like people actually want to listen to them. If there were more case managers at the Arch, if there were more people where they knew they could go and then actually get some help without feeling like they don't want to listen, they don't care, then this thing wouldn't be what it is now. I mean, all it is, what it boils down to, all it is a matter of people caring about people. And if there's anything I can do to help because of what's been given to me, I'm more than willing to do it. Thank y'all for listening.
Sir, thank you for coming down. Would you, sir, thank you for coming down. Your voice is a real important one to be heard today. Would you state your name for the record?
Gregory Williams. I'm currently at Foundation Communities. I'm a client of Caritas.
Mr. Williams, thank you very much for coming down.
Yes,
thank
you're
you.
welcome. Thank y'all. Thank y'all.
Councilmember Kitchen.
Thank you all very much. Is
your presentation over?
We're finished.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess I should wait. So it was very, very helpful, and I really appreciate all the work that's been done in putting this together and highlighting for us the challenges in front of us that we need to take action on. I have a question and a request, actually. So, Ms. Hensley, you talked in terms of next steps as part of the budget process, putting together, if I'm paraphrasing this right, putting together ideas or a program or whatever as part of the budget process to come back to us in the city manager's budget. I would like to ask that as part of that process, and I'm assuming this is something that you're probably already doing, but I would just like to ask that you consider the various resolutions that different council members have put forward over the last year in consideration of resources that may be needed to carry those out. And of course, I'm thinking in terms of the ones that I brought forward with regard to panhandling, and there are others, many others that Mayor Pro Tem and others have brought forward. So assuming you'll let us know, and if there's any of those that don't make it into y'all's recommendations, just let us know why and understand that.
Absolutely.
And then also related to that, this is my request, and I think it was included in the budget items we brought forward last year, but I don't think it made it all the way because of issues related to sufficient funding. But I would really want you to take a look at the respite service program, and that, for those that aren't familiar, that is the program that intervenes in the cycle of people going to the emergency room, being admitted to the hospital, discharged out on the street, and because they cannot recover on the street, ending up back in the emergency room in the hospital. That's a low-hanging fruit in terms of the effectiveness of the respite program, which provides medical services in a medical setting for those individuals until they can recover, and then connects them to permanent housing. And we are woefully underbedded on that. So I just ask that you consider that. And then finally, I'd ask you to consider, we've covered a lot of very important and high priority areas here. But I would just ask that you not forget about safety. Safety is one of the areas that you highlighted early on. We don't have any recommendations in what's in front of us with regard to ECHO specific to safety. I mean, obviously, the kinds of actions that we're talking about taking will be helpful, but I think I would like to really understand what we can and should be doing as a city with regards to this safety issue that you highlighted early on.
Absolutely, Councilmember Kitchen, and we are including the resolutions,
Yes.
looking at what those costs would be. We are, as I said, tomorrow the staff will be meeting together to talk about the budget process of the police department and EMS, and all will be included. And then respite services is a top priority for us because we have seen individuals who have been moved out of the hospital system, walking the streets with their IV bags and other things, and they're not ready to get out on the street, and we need to find places for them to go.
Okay, thank you. I have two other quick questions. Would you like to go to someone else first?
Let's do that.
Okay.
Councilmember Alder.
Thank you. I wanted to, first of all, thank Ms. Hensley and Ms. O'Connor for helping to lead on this charge with respect to homelessness and all of the staff. I'm really heartened to see all of you working together. I'm sure you've been doing it, but really today's presentation made that very transparent. In addressing this issue, it's a very complex problem, and I wholeheartedly agree with the need to have multiple departments working together, and I'm excited to see a tangible aspect of how our strategic plan may be working out in the budget to see on the outcomes. Often in the conversation over this, the emphasis is on our new resources that we need. And perhaps you didn't say it as explicitly in this presentation, but I am excited to see us question how we are deploying existing resources and whether we are having as much impact as possible with those resources. So as you move forward with this budget approach, I hope you will also be looking at what we are doing with existing resources in conjunction, obviously, with that broader community conversation so that we can actually move towards solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Councilmember Renteria, and then Ms. Houston.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I really want to thank all the departments that addressed all those issues that we were having at the Dodge Library, and I really want to thank y'all. I have seen the improvement that has happened there, but also that we have a lot of housing projects, especially low-income housing projects that a lot of these nonprofits are going through, and the process, the planning process is really holding a lot of these projects back. And I hope that you also get with other departments, especially like transportation. There's so much cost involved when you're having to build a new road or have to move utilities. We need to really help these nonprofit groups that are trying to, address our needs here, especially on the affordability side on housing. So we really would just encourage the management and all these departments, when they see these kind of projects coming through, that they give it a priority so that these projects doesn't get delayed as long as it's been. And I know that since I've been on the council, I've worked on one particular project, especially in the Shady Lane, James Lane Road problems, and then Rebecca Bain Johnson problem, where all of a sudden we were ready to break ground, and then you have a road that's parkland and it has to be moved, and you have to run all the utilities. And these kind of, real late in the project, in the process, to come up like that really delays these type of projects, and it really delays, us providing affordable housing to not only our seniors and to families. So I would hope that, y'all really look into that when these projects come through, and make sure that we get it right in the first process so that we don't have all these delays that continues to happen.
We will.
Council. Colleagues, as we're talking about this, we're now just past noon. We have citizen communications that can't occur any earlier than noon, but they can be called at any point. We have the ending of discussion on the presentation, and then we also have a related item, which is the endorsement of the ECHO plan, item number 30, all of which we were hoping to get done before we got to citizen communication. So it's where we are right now. Ms. Houston?
Well, Mayor, we only have, I don't have my agenda in front of 5 people. My suggestion is that we go ahead and listen to citizens' communication. I know we say no earlier than 12, but people are here at 12.
How about if we listen to those 5 people, but stay here, finish the conversation on homeless, deal with the ECHO item, number 30, because I think we might have similar people, and then at that point we'll break for lunch. Does that work for everybody?
That works for me.
All right, let's go ahead and do that then.